extraordinaire guru, Mesha Molitor. She's going to walk you through a number of tips and tricks and useful things to just enhance your use of EagleVision over the next like half hour or so. I have just a couple of housekeeping items before I turn it over to Mesha. The first thing is we have a number of faculty members here from all 3 campuses, which is wonderful. So if you could, in the chat box, just tell us what campus you're from, just so we can have that for attendance records. Also, Mesha will be pausing after each topic that she covers. And so we do ask that you hold your questions. If you're like me and you forget, if you can't ask right away, please feel free to use the chat feature as well. There's a couple of us in here monitoring it, so we'll be sure that we get to your question. But Mesha is going to be kind of showcasing a couple of things, and we want to be sure that she's able to get through the things that she wants to cover, but we also want to be sure that she's able to address your questions. Also, all of you are already muted, so thank you so much for that. So just remain muted unless you are asking a question or engaging in conversation, just because we've all been on those, Zoom meetings where someone's typing away or doing something. So we want to be sure that everyone gets the most out of this session. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to Mesha.
All right, thanks, Angie. And again, this is our EagleVision Extra session. And so I see a lot of familiar names on there, and also excited to see some new names from some of the residential campuses, so welcome. I know our session this morning at 8 a.m. was probably a little early for those out on the West Coast. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with our great little extra features that I'm going to share with you. So first of all, I'm going to go ahead and turn off my webcam and going to go ahead and move over. And we figured out this morning I did want to walk through some of these items live, but unfortunately, some of these items that I'm showing in the Zoom settings area doesn't let you screen share some of those. So we had some improvising this morning, so I have now taken screenshots to make it a little bit easier. So if everybody can give me a green check, they are able to see my Zoom desktop app here. And again, to check the green checks, you'll have that participant list, which you find by clicking on the little participant people down at the bottom of your screen. It will pop in a box and you'll see a green check mark there. So I see a couple people giving me some green checks. Thanks so much for that. All right, so for the first thing is to make sure that your desktop app is updated. Now, you do always want to make sure and go through your desktop app, not the browser. And I originally thought that Zoom, when they put out their updates, would automatically send these updates, kind of how we've had with our, previous software tools of, Saba and Adobe Connect. However, they only push those major updates when there's something big that they're fixing. However, they do several little mini fixes where they might add some little fun features or fix some small little bugs, and those are not automatically updated. So really the last time it's been updated was back toward the end of May, and that was a big security update. So you are up to date with that one. However, since then there's been about 9 other updates, which I didn't realize until another day. I clicked on there and found out I was 9 versions behind. So very important to make sure you're up to date. And to do that, you're going to open your desktop app and it's going to come to this screen here. And then you're going to click on your little profile picture, which will then bring you to your list of some settings here. And you're going to find where it says check. Oh, didn't mean to check that. Let's go back one. Right here, check for updates. When you click on that, it will give you a pop-up box letting you know if there are any updates available, and then you can click to update it. I had, like I said, 9 different dates of updates, so I was several versions behind. But again, you'll see they are kind of some small updates that I probably wasn't missing too much, but maybe if you attend a meeting and you're like, hey, how did they get to do that? And I can't do that. It's probably because you haven't updated. Once you are up to date, you can see this message here letting you know that you are up to date with the current version. Are there any questions on how to check for updates? You can either turn your mic on and ask a question, or I will go ahead and keep going. Thanks for the red X, Dave. All right. Joe, did you have a question? I'm not able to quite understand. I'm not sure. Is that audio a little off for anybody else? Oh, yes, helium would be a good way to describe that. Hopefully that's not how I'm sounding to everybody. It's an interesting voice. Oh, it's still doing the same thing. Do you want to maybe type in your question? I hate to have you type it in if it's a long question. And I'm glad to hear I'm sounding okay. And I also want to point out that some people that are attending might not be necessarily teaching with EagleVision or using it for office hours, but maybe your staff that you're having meetings. You also will have this. Where is the app? I never see this page. Oh, awesome. So the app is actually what you have to download. So when you go into Canvas, if you click on your EagleVision Zoom link, so the first time you schedule your meeting, when you go to attend, it's going to ask you to download. You do want to make sure and have the desktop app downloaded. And I don't know if it's going to let me share what it looks like. No, it's not. It's a little blue square with a little white camera in it that would then appear on your desktop. Does that help any? Yeah, you probably don't want to update while you're on a Zoom meeting because it will probably disconnect you. But Joe, we can definitely help you out if you need help downloading the desktop app. We can definitely reach out to you after and help you with that. All right. Yeah, so all of these things are going from the desktop application in your like settings. So everybody is able to use these. These aren't necessarily going in through Canvas. All right, are there any other questions besides the one with Joe that we'll help out with? All right, so the next thing is to set up your profile picture. So some of you might notice that while we have our camera off, instead of just having our name or our email address displayed, we actually have our profile picture. And in order to have that, again, you are going to click on your little picture. Well, yours would probably be just the little silhouette. And then you can go to settings. Now that I'm at this point, I do have the ability to now share what that will look like. So once you click on the settings gear icon, let me switch to a blank slide here so I can share that. It's going to open your settings and it defaults to your general. Now, most of these settings you're not going to want to mess with. You're going to want them to just stay default how they are for the best, optimized session. However, some of them are editable to kind of meet your needs. And so setting up your profile, if you click on profile, now I already have a picture here, but if yours is blank, you can still click on the image. It's a pencil there, and it's going to bring up a box for you to then find an image on your computer. So you can search for one and insert it. And then once you have it in there, it does give you the ability to zoom in or zoom out to, adjust the image how you want your picture to show. So you can kind of make it a little bit smaller, and then you can save your image, and it will then appear on your little profile. So it'll be there on your desktop app, as well as when you don't have your webcam, your video active, instead of just having your email, you'll see the picture. So I know like Angie's is set up that way. So if you can see that right now in there. Are there any questions on adding your profile picture? Again, it's a very tiny picture, and I know some people, generally we recommend, using your professional picture that you have, that you're using for the university. I know sometimes some people in Canvas have maybe some cute pictures of maybe grandkids or pets or things like that. Just keep in mind they're super, super small. So if it's very detailed, it's just going to kind of look like nothing. All right. So the next item that I want to talk about is having some video edits that you can make. Now, with your video, some people have kind of said that when they click their webcam on, you're kind of large and in charge, which is a great thing when you're teaching and stuff, but sometimes it's a little much. So they do have a feature in here where you can touch up your appearance. Now, touching up your appearance, it's kind of just going to make so that it's not as harsh lines. It's not going to turn into a glamour shots. It doesn't, slim those third chins or anything like that, which I was really hoping for. But it will kind of make it a little bit softer image, and it is a slider, so you can adjust that to, your kind of what you think looks good with that. You'll see that there's a just for low light. So maybe, I know most instructors when they're teaching an EagleVision class, it is usually in the evening time. We always want to recommend having a lamp in front of your face, not necessarily behind you. However, sometimes it can still be kind of dim and not quite as bright. So you do have the ability to check this box to adjust for low light, and it kind of lightens your webcam image. You can mirror your video, and you'll also see the ability to enable HD. Now, we don't recommend to enable HD as this does require more bandwidth. And this is kind of something that, Dr. Watret and Dr. Butler maybe use when they're doing town halls, because you're really just kind of focusing on them. They're not really, sharing a PowerPoint or anything like that. So it's more of like a discussion. And it's, kind of given broad range. We have a big group, and when you watch the recording, you want to make sure, it's high quality of those kind of things. But in general, for, teaching and maybe meetings and things like that, enabling that HD would require whoever's, attending to use more bandwidth. And while we do recommend to always be hardwired, there are some people, I'm not going to point anybody out, that do use Wi-Fi, and it will cause some lagging and some different issues for them. So we really don't recommend doing that unless you are going to be doing some kind of big presentation where, it's just going to kind of be you on camera. Are there any questions with any of these great video enhancements? All right. So the next thing that I want to point out here in our settings is our backgrounds. I know a lot of you have probably already played around with this, and when we got this, this was probably my favorite feature because, I like making things fun. One of the downfalls is that it does require a higher video card. So if you do have a Embry-Riddle assigned laptop, some of those are not strong enough to carry the video backgrounds. And if that is the case, you'll kind of notice that maybe it doesn't load correctly, or maybe you don't load correctly on there. You might have like a floating head, an ear might be missing, the top of your head might be kind of part of the image. So if that's the case, it's probably due to your computer equipment not having a strong enough video card. And we do have a link for those requirements if you are having an issue with that. However, if you are able to use the video backgrounds, we do have several, you can see here, that we have pre-made, and they've got some great Embry-Riddle backgrounds. If you would like to use any of those are located in our, oops, let me get rid of this here. They are located on our EagleVision Zoom page of our faculty resource site. And we'll give it just a second to load here. Under the starting meeting tab, under accordion number 4, down here it talks about the virtual background. Here is where it talks about needing the specific video graphics card in order to support the backgrounds. And then you'll see here is the link in order to get those great backgrounds. They are PowerPoint files, so you can just save them to your computer. And then once you have saved them,
use the new link to create folders for organizing your
let me
content.
get back to my PowerPoint here. Once you have saved them, then you can come to the video section. Let me bring that back over. You can come back here to the video or the backgrounds with virtual backgrounds, and you're going to click this little tiny plus here on the right hand side, and it gives you the ability to add the image. So you would click on here, see where you saved it, whether you saved it on your desktop or if you have a special folder, and then you can save them, and then you can choose which background you would like for your session. Now you also have the ability to create one. So I know a lot of you probably have some great images of maybe the worldwide campus or an airport or some, campus pictures that you would like to use. You do have the ability to create your own, and you can do that in one of two ways. You can use PowerPoint. Everybody probably has PowerPoint, or you should have PowerPoint. And you can create just a single slide and put those images in there. Or there's a great tool to create one on a website called Canva. Now this is a free website, and it looks just like Canvas without the S. And from here, they actually have a lot of different templates for you to use, but they've actually created some great ones specifically for Zoom. So if you go on their page and scroll all the way down, you're going to see where it says Zoom virtual backgrounds. Now they do have a paid account, and you can get some extra bonus ones, but when I've looked around, really the free ones, they had more than enough to use in just the free account. So here's like a highlight of some of them, and if you go to the far right, you're going to see where it says Scene All. And as you can see here, they've got some great still images as well as some MP4 moving backgrounds you can use. I really love this fish one. I actually used that at the very beginning, and it's kind of a Zen, soothing kind of retreat. Again, this space one, I love, perfect for Embry-Riddle, I think. So you can definitely choose one of these pre-made ones from here, or they have the ability to create your own by clicking this blank one. And it will bring you to the page here where you can edit. Again, they have backgrounds that you can add if you would like one. So we can click on that. I don't know if that's a great background to put on there, but here's the background. You can also upload your own. So you can see here I've uploaded, and this is how I created my background that you're all able to see right now from Worldwide Headquarters. You can put some different elements in there. You've got text, so if you want to write something on there, you can put that on there with the text. You can move it around. There's different styles, so if you have a different color scheme that you want to use. Again, here was the video, so this is going to be probably a little bit more than you would want for a virtual background, but maybe if you're having it play during maybe a break time, you can definitely enable one of these. You've got the solid backgrounds, and then you have a folder to store yours. So once you've created your amazing virtual background and you're ready to save it, you would go over to download, and it's going to save it as a PNG, and you can just click download. It'll save it to your computer. Just like that, you're going to want to save it. And then I'm going to cancel it because I don't want to necessarily save that. Again, they're going to post some kind of advertising here since it is free, so you can just cancel that as well. And then once you have that item saved, you can then go back to your backgrounds and filters, click that little plus sign, and then wherever you save that image, or if you did one of those moving backgrounds with like the fish or the other movie ones, those you would use as an add video. Then once you have those loaded, you could select whichever one you want. It will then be displayed here. You have the ability to check if you have a green screen. So that can also help to make sure, if you have one of those, that will give you a better virtual background. And you also have the ability to mirror your video. Are there any questions on adding any virtual backgrounds? Yeah, so if you have it needs to be updated, that could be something with the video card. You're always welcome to contact IT if you're having any issues with those, and they can kind of, log into your computer and jump into some of those back-end hardware settings and find out kind of, what you've got, and maybe if it's something that they can update, or if it's kind of like, sorry about your luck. One of the new features is some video filters. These are not necessarily something that I would probably recommend to use for teaching. These are kind of similar to those fun Snapchat filters that you see everywhere these days, where you can turn into a little cat or have rainbows coming out of your mouth, or all those kind of fun things. So I think that's probably something more when you're in a meeting trying to create some fun times maybe, or maybe in some personal meetings that you're doing. But those are some little extras in there. All right. So moving right along here, the next thing that we have is making somebody a co-host. So when you are in your EagleVision class, probably wouldn't necessarily happen when you're in a EagleVision meeting. I guess it could, or if you're doing office hours, but sometimes, things with technology, they're not 100% perfect. They do sometimes have a small glitch, and you might get kicked out of your session. So when you're teaching, we do recommend to have somebody kind of be a co-host. That way, if you get kicked out of the session, somebody is still in there that has some host rights. And then when you come back in, they can promote you back to a host. And, maybe they can let the other students know, hey, this is what's happening. You can kind of use maybe your student aid, or if, you have a student that is reliable to be in there. And to do that, when you create your meeting, in the schedule a meeting, you've got all this information here. But if you scroll down to the bottom, you'll see where it says an alternate host. This is where you can put their names in. Now you can put several in there. I wouldn't recommend getting too carried away, because they do have some extra rights in the class. So they could, screen share in the middle of you screen sharing, or, doing some things that maybe you don't necessarily want them to do, and they might do it by accident. So, kind of keep that to a minimum, but just have it there kind of as a coverage, just in case you get kicked out of a session, that you have that kind of backup to kind of, save you if it does happen. We've had very few been reported so far, but, like I said, it's not 100%. Strange things happen, internet kicks out, and you can pop right back in. But, for those few minutes, it is nice to have somebody in there. Are there any questions about making anybody a co-host? Let's see. Any way to minimize the disappearing act when using backgrounds other than don't move? Oh, so Rachel, that's kind of the thing I was talking about with the video card. So the virtual backgrounds, they are kind of an enhancement. So it's not like an actual perfect image of that. And so sometimes, like you said, that disappearing act, I was talking how you might lose an ear, you might kind of be a floating head. You do want to keep your moving down to a minimum, because basically it's trying to keep your image loaded while having that background displayed and keeping the colors kind of separate. I know that sometimes if you wear certain colors, it thinks it's part of the background. We were in one meeting, and somebody was wearing a shirt. They had the beach scene, and it was kind of as their inside part of their shirt picked up some of the beach. So it was a little like their chest was part of the sand, and then their other shirt. So it was kind of an interesting little thing. And, you know, you really don't want that distracting when you're teaching. Also, what I have done is I've created a virtual background. And so you can see my background that I have right now. So I technically have my webcam active, but I have a cover over my actual camera itself. So it's closed. So my virtual background is live, but it doesn't have my actual picture interrupting it. And so I kind of use that when I'm presenting, so I'm not distracting from focusing on the content. You know, one of the great things we want with EagleVision is to keep, you know, cams on and keep engaged with the students, but you don't want to distract from your content either. So that's always an option that you have as well. All right, let's see if I've missed, Angie, have I missed any other? I see Dave says, got it, thanks, but I'm not sure what
those were the two that I had written down.
Oh, okay, awesome. So some of the questions that we had from this morning's session was talking about when your students enter as guests. And you can kind of even see from our participant list right now, we have some entered as guests and some are not. All of your students should enter without the guest. That means that they are entering with their single sign-on, that they've been logged in. Hopefully they've gone in through their Canvas course and clicked on join and not clicked on any link. So if you are teaching with EagleVision, you don't want to be sending out any links to your course. You want them to enter by going into the course, going to the EagleVision Zoom, and clicking the join next to the session. That does make sure that they are signed in. Sorry about that, I had to get a drink. And that will keep them securely logged in. There have been some issues that some students' accounts are having some catches. I think we even have somebody in our team, no matter how hard he tries, it still doesn't connect with our domain. We do recommend them contacting IT if that is an issue. Sometimes it's because they've had a account prior to this, or they have like a personal account. Some faculty I know from some of the residential campuses actually had paid accounts prior to us signing on with this new tool. So, you know, again, they've got some different accounts that they use. So that could be reasons as well. But you do want to make sure in your class you don't have any guests. This is where it comes to security issue that it could be a Zoom bomber. I don't know that we've actually reported any of those, and I'm not sure why anybody would just want to come sit in a class for no reason, but it has been, you know, I'm sure you've probably heard it in the news. You know, Zoom is a very popular tool right now with everybody, you know, kind of working from home and attending classes from home, that things have happened. You've got some other, you know, meeting options here. We do kind of recommend just leaving them defaulted how they are, but if you do have certain things that you want, you can change these. Enabled to join before the host. We have that set. That kind of allows your students to get in there before you, not that they can do anything, but in prior years, we had where it was the host had to be in first, and it does give the students a message letting you know, the host hasn't started the meeting, you're waiting. You might have seen that if you've attended a town hall, if you get in there before Dr. Retrette starts it. For some reason, I don't know if the students don't understand the message, if they don't read it, but they send in IT tickets saying that they can't get into the class, or, it's locking them out. Really, if they just read it, it just lets them know that it just hasn't started yet, just be patient. Muting participants upon entry, that just keeps everybody's mic from being hot as soon as they come in. If you do that, you might want to let your students know so that if they're trying to, use it to say something, that they do have to unmute it. The personal meeting ID, this we don't necessarily recommend using, especially not for class. because if you do anything in that meeting as far as recordings, your students won't have access to that. That's kind of like your own little private meeting space. So that might be something if you're having maybe a meeting with another faculty, or maybe you're having a meeting one-on-one with a student and you just want to send them that meeting link. That would be something you could use for that personal meeting ID. Or if maybe you want to practice something, you know, you should have a Canvas sandbox, which you're the only one enrolled in there, but if you do want to use your personal meeting space, maybe you want to run through to see how you sound, see how something looks, you can do that in your personal meeting space, and that way then nobody would be able to see those recordings but you. Only authenticated users. We're still testing this. Technically, if they're logging into Canvas and clicking the preferred way, going through the EagleVision Zoom link and then clicking join, it should authenticate them with the SSO, with your single sign-on. However, sometimes there's glitches, and so you can check that box. The only problem then is if they have a problem with their account, then they won't be able to get in the session. So keep that in mind. Record the meeting automatically. This is a great feature if you're one of those people who forget to record your sessions. I actually started this session a couple minutes late. I was like, oh no, gotta remember to record. You know, there's a lot going on when you're teaching. So you have the ability to set this. However, you need to keep in mind that if you do select this option, as soon as you log in, the recording is going to start. So what that means is if you log in 15 minutes prior to class, 30 minutes prior to class, that recording is going to start. And then if anybody's watching that recording, there's going to be 15 or 30 minutes of dead time. It also will happen if students click on the join link prior. So you've got a very excited student, you know, classes on Wednesday night, today is Tuesday, they just want to jump in and kind of look at stuff, and they're like, oh, join button. They click join, it's going to open the session and make a little recording, and they might get in there and go, oh, this is cool, can't do anything, let me exit. It will make a small recording for that. So just keep that in mind, that that will happen if you enable that automatic recording. All right, I think I've kind of run through all of those questions that we had from the morning session.
Mesha?
Yes.
Dave had a question about accepting and rejecting students from entering, like the waiting room. Can you talk about that a little bit?
In regards to, so if you set up your waiting room, you then will get, if you enable sounds, you will get a little message to allow them in. And if you don't allow them in, they will stay in the waiting room. And you do have to allow each person then to come in. Is that kind of what you're asking, Dave, or is there a specific about it? Oh, that will work, yeah. So the waiting room is another kind of level of security, and kind of if you taught in Adobe Connect, I kind of think of the waiting room as sort of like the lobby, except for you have to allow them in. So if you think about teaching in a classroom, if you made everybody wait in the hall, and then when you're ready, you unlock the door and let everybody come in, it's kind of that similar scenario where they're kind of in like a holding cloud space, we'll say, and you'll get a little notification, and you can enable sounds so that you do get a little alert when somebody comes in. Now, keep in mind, if you enable waiting rooms, whenever anybody comes in, you're going to have to do it. So it doesn't just happen at the beginning. If you've got a student that's, 15 minutes late, 45 minutes late, whatever the case may be, you kind of have to still be conscious of listening for that sound or watching for that little pop-up to allow them in. But it does kind of give you another level of security, making sure that you're only allowing people that belong in your session. So that is another great security feature.
And I think that Dave was talking about like individualized meetings, capstone meetings, or office hours. It's a great feature for those.
Exactly, because those you really want to, kind of only have maybe working with one person at a time and kind of let everybody else wait. It does give you a little more control with that. And again, that is something that you would manually set when you're creating your capstone meeting or whatever kind of meeting that you're setting. You would enable the waiting room here, and that would set that up. Great question. Are there any other questions? I know we've got quite a variety in here. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead. If we don't have any more questions with that, let me go ahead and go back here to our last slide to kind of go over a couple of other things. First of all, I want to thank you guys all for taking this time out of your afternoon to kind of get some of these little extra features to just kind of enhance your session.